Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Just a quick reminder that I do giveaways every single week, so if you're interested and don't know how to enter, just stay tuned and I'll tell you exactly how to. That said, we've got some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by DampSheetsAndDogHair. So my hair isn't acceptable, what would you suggest? This takes place in the early 2000s. I was working in a video/DVD rental store at the time and was only a couple of weeks into the job, but was enjoying my time there. At the store was me, two managers, other guy working the register, and the regional manager for the area. I've always liked having a splash of color in my hair, and it had never been an issue with employment until this instance. At the time, I had my natural brunette hair short and spiked up with a blue patch at the front, which happened to be the same shade as our employees' shirts, which pleased me. One day, a few weeks into the job, the regional manager walked in, a woman with a chip on her shoulder the size of her ego. She did her checks on how the store was running, etc., and was talking to me as I was the newest employee there, making sure I knew what I was doing and stuff. As she finishes up, she says offhand to me, "By the way, you'll have to take that color out of your hair. I want it gone before my next visit." This surprised me, as I had read the employee handbook to make sure I was following all uniform guidelines and made sure it wasn't an issue with the two shop managers. So I asked her why I had to change my hair. She instantly got huffy and puffed out her chest and said, "Because I told you to, are you questioning me?" I said, "No, I was just wondering what guidelines I've broken, as I've read the employee and uniform regulations and didn't see anything about hair color in there, and want to be sure I haven't missed something." "Because I told you so and it's an unnatural hair color, you'll have to get rid of it." That annoyed me, as I've never liked having to do something just because. So I told her, "Well, other guy at the register has bleached tips, manager 1 dyes her hair blonde, and manager 2 has maroon hair. None of those are their natural colors, so I don't understand why I'm getting singled out." Regional manager did not like this, and since she couldn't give me an answer, just repeated, "Because I'm your boss and I told you so, and if you don't want to change your hair, you can leave. I will be in next week and I want that color gone." So I said, "I understand, I'll fix it, no worries. But just to be clear, so I'm keeping in with your guidelines, other guy, manager 1 and manager 2 have acceptable color and styles?" To which she said yes, and I asked, "And is my hairstyle okay? Did you want me to cut it a certain way or anything, or is it just the color?" She started getting annoyed again and said, "You can keep it like that, just get rid of the color." So I confirmed that I would have it sorted before she came in next week, which seemed to satisfy the beast, and she walked off in a cloud of smugness at having laid down her law. As soon as she was out of the door, I told the shop managers what I was going to do, and they laughed, but said they'd have my back when she came in again. So my blue patch of hair had to go, no problem. Colored tips, dyed blonde hair, and maroon hair like the other staff had were all hunky-dory. So that weekend, I did all three to be on the safe side. I bleached all my hair near transparent blonde with maroon tips spiked up in my usual style, as apparently that wasn't an issue. Welp, that turns out that's not what the regional manager had in mind. Cue surprise. She came in the next week and lost it. Took me in the back with the two shop managers shouting about how I was blatantly ignoring her and that she was going to see to it that I was fired. I acted innocent and surprised and said that I had checked with her that this would be okay before she left. My hairstyle was fine, colored tips on the other guy was fine, and she had confirmed that the maroon hair the shop manager had was fine. She was not backing down, and assured me she'd report me to the head office for my disrespecting a regional manager like that. She stormed out of the shop on her merry way, so again I told the two shop managers what I was going to do, which was to get in touch with the head office's HR department myself, as I was following all written company regulations, as well as the regional manager's arbitrary rules. And she seemed to be discriminating against me personally for whatever reason, and I would be pursuing unfair dismissal as there was no reason to fire me. I was darn good at my job and got on well with all the customers and staff. It was only the regional manager out to get me. So I did just that, emailed the head office's HR saying what had happened, and the two shop managers also emailed on my behalf, backing up that I was following all guidelines, including the ones the regional manager made up, and that I was a model employee. For them anyways, but I liked them. And they would attest that I was being singled out and harassed by the regional manager if I got dismissed because of this. The next day, the shop managers called me in to say HR had been in touch and that of course I wasn't going to be fired and there was no company guidelines for things like hair color and not to worry at all about it. Have my hair any way I wanted once it wasn't unkempt. Awesome, that's all I wanted. Happy ending. Now let's do the super duper happy ending. Couple weeks later, the new regional manager walked in to introduce themselves. Turns out, I wasn't the only one having issues with the regional manager being on a power trip. After they had several complaints from staff and managers in different stores throughout the area, she was demoted to a regular store manager. I was the straw that broke their back, it seems. So let's discuss this, guys. If you walked into a common store and you saw that the employee there had blue hair or an unnatural color in their hair, would that bother you? Would that make you think any negative things? Do you think that they shouldn't have the unnatural hair color, or do you think it should just be freely allowed? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Reserved Snow 673. Teacher destroys our $700 PC. Backstory. We are a group of 5 students managing the school's magazine, newspaper, social media, events, etc. We decided to manage it to improve our grades. We get an extra 5%, but we love dealing with this stuff. Yeah, you can say we're nerds. Due to the type of work, we had to get our own setup because the school doesn't fund us. Sucks, I know. Each member invested $200 for the setup. 2 monitors, a keyboard and mouse, and a decent $500 PC. We spent $200 on filming equipment. Cameras, microphones, etc. So one day we're working on our PC. We're working on a very important blog setup and that day was the deadline. And this teacher, everyone says she's fueled by meth, comes into the lab and literally grabs the mouse from my hand and starts scolding us for using school property without permission. Why are you playing on school property? Ma'am, we're doing… All of you, go back to class. P, the group head, says, ma'am, we were just doing… Just go, let me do my job. Jay says, but this is our Just get out. Here comes the malicious compliance. So we went back to our classes. When the principal asked why the blog wasn't up, we told her that Miss Meth teacher told us to stop and the blog will be 2 days late. The principal knew the blog was important, so she called Miss Meth, whom lied. The principal knew us all very well, so she just sighed and let us go. Here comes the sweet part. The next day, the teacher did the same thing again. As we left the room, we saw her smash our PC on the floor hard, which broke the freaking monitors. We all saw that and were pissed. But then, Jay told us a plan and we smiled. Miss Meth filed a complaint against us, claiming we destroyed school property. Our PC. The principal was confused by this, so she called us over to her office. The principal said, so why did you destroy your own PC? Miss Meth sweats nervously. We told her that we didn't break it, but Miss Meth didn't back down. I told the principal to check the CCTV security footage, and she did. And oh boy, Miss Meth's face in that moment was nothing compared to the anger on the principal's face. The principal said, how much did that setup cost? It cost $700. To be fair, Miss Meth did try to get us in trouble. We said $1,000. Principal said, Miss Meth, you have to give them $1,200. $1,000 for the PC and $200 for the work you destroyed. They're lying, it wasn't that expensive. Principal said, it's expensive enough. That PC single-handedly maintained almost everything in the school. And I know for a fact it was expensive because I knew how efficiently it worked. We also did video editing on it. We were sent back to our classes, and the next day we were given $1,200, and the principal wanted to go with us to buy a new PC. But I told her I will just get the parts and we'll build a new one in school in just a few hours. I had built the previous one. So that's how we got a brand new setup. It's much better than the previous one, which was 2 years old, and we got a free $300 from the principal as compensation. A week later, Miss Meth was fired and we were introduced to a new teacher. Our 5% grade boost for social media management was increased to 7%. Yay! So a win for us. Miss Meth, although most likely not actually being on meth, sounds like the exact kind of teacher that wasn't fit for being around children. It sounds like they spite children, like they just can't stand them, that they want them to all be punished for dumb stuff. And then the fact that she's also psychotic enough to break the PC and try and frame them, that's a yikes. They should have lost their job, not just $1,200. This next story is by zeromig. Skip on a high school senior tradition? Never. But how about a double serving of malicious compliance instead? This isn't my story, but it happened to some high school classmates of mine in the late 1990s. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to be part of it. The AP calculus teacher had a tradition that held up for at least a decade, where if you brought your college acceptance letter, you'd be invited to his breakfast club. Essentially, instead of taking the math final exam for the year, he'd provide transportation to the local IHOP, buy everyone breakfast, and shoot the breeze together. The gesture was a popular and welcome one. After all, these were the brightest kids in the school, the top 10%, including the valedictorian, the salutatorian, the captain of the debate team, and others. Taking a final exam when they were already assured their places in Ivy League schools was a pointless formality, after all. The year this story happened, however, there was a new teacher who made a big deal about how unfair the breakfast club was. Funnily enough, her name was Karen. The school's vice principal came in and told the class that they would stay in the school with everyone else and take the final exam, or else they'd face in-school suspension. The AP calculus teacher had his hands tied. So, on the day of the test, a Friday, the whole class came in and took their test, which consisted of a single question. What's your name? The students looked up to see a poop-eating grin on the teacher's face, and they quickly caught on. Everyone filled in their papers, submitted them, and then they went off to IHOP. Perfect test scores for everyone. By the time the weekend was over, the whole school knew the story, and Karen must have complained to the vice principal once more because he came and gave in-school suspension tickets for the entire class. It was truly an odd sight to see the school's geniuses file into the in-school suspension room, only to find their AP Calc teacher who had volunteered for monitor duties, or swapped with the normal monitor or something. And he had brought bags of bagels, cream cheese, white fish spread, and butter for everyone serving suspension that day. Mr. Buckley, you're a legend. Mr. Buckley sounds like a teacher you will never forget, and those are the best kinds of teachers, or the worst kind of teachers too. But we like to remember the ones that you can't forget because of how amazing they were. So shout out to Mr. Buckley. So quickly now, I want to explain just how to enter the giveaway. All you need to do is leave a comment on this video relevant to something you saw or heard or liked in any story in that video. That's it, you're entered. But it applies to every single video we upload this week. So to get the best odds at winning the $30 Amazon gift card giveaway, you'll want to leave a comment relating to any of those videos all week long. On Sunday, after the last video has gone out, I'll pick one comment at random and let you know on the following Monday who has won, and then it starts all over again. So make sure you leave a relevant comment on this video and additionally every video I upload this week for the absolute best chance to win. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and give the videos a like too, because it helps more than you could imagine. With that being said, our final story of the day is by Piss the Freak Off Now. You want their commanding officer to reprimand them? Absolutely. Here's the details. Note, this is not my story and I sadly never heard it from the main person in this. It is my grandfather's story, but he died a couple of years before I was born, so I sadly never met him. His antics, however, are told throughout the family. I don't actually know if any of them have read it, but I know for a fact my gran has no idea it even exists. I'm also not sure exactly when this would have occurred, but I think it was sometime in the 1950s, running off his age and when he and my gran met, but it may have been the 60s. It may also have been embellished through the tellings. He was apparently that sort of a man. My grandfather was in the RAF for most of his life, mainly as an officer. I was told this because he was a terrible mechanic but a good leader, so they just promoted him. My gran, not featured in the story but the person who originally told me it, was also in the RAF as a nurse for a period of her life. But she also was a midwife and worked in A&E. She's full of stories of the pair of them, including bomb stories in Singapore and a burning bed. My grandfather, as an RAF officer, had gone with his squad out onto the town. Naturally, they got drunk. Very drunk. Stupendously drunk. The kind of drunk where you don't have any good ideas. They were, in fact, so drunk they didn't know their way home. They didn't even know where they were. These Brits were plastered. And then one had an idea. How about someone climbs the street sign and holds a light up to it to find out where we are or which way base is? My grandfather, being an upstanding gentleman and always up for some hijinks of questionable morality and or legality such as this, volunteered. This went as swimmingly as you'd expect with a bunch of drunk men on a dark night. A cop showed up. A very angry cop showed up. Noticing they were in the armed forces, he asked for the group's commanding officer, having seen my grandfather on a pole, but not their names. Naturally, the police officer meant the commanding officer of the most senior member of the group, but didn't phrase it that way because there was a certain expectation with officers' behavior. An expectation, I have it on reliable information, that my grandfather completely ignored. Meaning that the police officer probably did not think he would be one. Funnily enough, he was. And he was the group's commanding officer, so he passed on his details to the cop as if he were his own commanding officer, grumbled some sort of apology, and made his way back to the base with the rest of them. After a day or so, he received a letter from the very irate policeman informing him that a group of his men had been getting into this hijinks whilst radarsed and requested they face disciplinary proceedings. He wrote back saying he'd take care of it, laughing to himself. My grandfather Sr. later found out. I'm not sure how, but I'm not exactly surprised. How did this officer react? With a sigh and absolutely nothing else apparently. It's always fun to hear these stories where somebody's in a position like a commanding officer, but they're still acting like part of the guys and they just get into hijinks and they just have fun. It's just a sign of humanity from these people in these positions that you'd never expect. And as an added bonus, it actually helped out OP's grandfather in this situation. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe if you haven't, and turn on notifications so you'll never miss an upcoming video from the Storytime channel. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, so no matter what you did, thank you for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here.